Today, October 26th, 2025, is the Feast of Christ the King on the traditional Latin Mass calendar. The feast day has been redefined, changed, and moved on the new calendar. I typically will bring you a reflection on the kingship of Christ for both of the feast days. Today we turn to Fulton's Sheen. I think an essay he has, it's an excerpt really from one of his books, on sanctifying the moment is important. We are to spend time in meditation in front of the throne of Christ the King. His throne in our day-to-day lives is the tabernacle, where you can find him housed in any parish, in any church, almost every single day of the liturgical year, save for, of course, Good Friday. What better way to spend thinking about the kingship of Christ than on how to make the most of our time with him when we are in his presence? Here's an excerpt from chapter 16 of his book, Lift Up Your Heart. Millions of men and women today lead what has been called lives of quiet desperation. They are panicky, worried, neurotic, fearful, and above all, frustrated souls. The present moment includes some things over which we have control, but it also carries with it difficulties we cannot avoid. Such things as a business failure, a bad cold, rain on picnic days, an unwelcome visitor, a fallen cake, a buzzer that doesn't work, a fly in the milk, and a boil on the nose the night of the dance. We do not always know why such things as sickness and setbacks happen to us, for our minds are far too puny to grasp God's plan. Man is a little like a mouse in a piano, which cannot understand why it must be disturbed by someone playing Chopin and forcing it to move off the piano wires. When Job suffered, he posed questions to God. Why was he born? And why was he suffering? God appeared to him, but instead of answering Job's questions, he began to ask Job to answer some of the larger questions about the universe. When the Creator had finished pouring queries into the head of the creature, Job realized that the questions of God were wiser than the answers of men. Because God's ways are not our ways. Because the salvation of a soul is more important than all material values. Because divine wisdom can draw good out of evil. The human mind must develop acceptance of the now, no matter how hard it may be for us to understand its freight of pain. We do not walk out of a theater because the hero is taken out in the first act. We give the dramatist credit for having a plot in his mind. So the soul does not walk out on the first act of God's drama of salvation. It is the last act that is to crown the play. The things that happen to us are not always susceptible to our mind's comprehension or will's conquering, but they are always within the capacity of our faith to accept and of our will's submission. One question is never asked by love, and that is, why? The word is used only by the 3 Ds of doubt, deceit, and the devil. The happiness of the Garden of Paradise, founded on trusting love, cracked under the satanic query. Why has God commanded you? To true love, each wish of the beloved is a dread command. The lover even wishes that the requests were multiplied, that there might be more frequent opportunities of service. Those who love God do not protest, whatever he may ask of them, nor doubt his kindness when he sends them difficult hours. A sick man takes medicine without asking the physician to justify its bitter taste, because he trusts the doctor's knowledge. So the soul which has sufficient faith accepts all the events of life as gifts from God, in the serene assurance that he knows best. Every moment brings us more treasures than we can gather. The great value of the now, spiritually viewed, is that it carries a message God has directed personally to us. Books, sermons, and broadcasts on religious themes have the appearance of being circular letters meant for everyone. Sometimes when such general appeals do appear to have a personal application, the soul gets angry and writes vicious letters to allay its uneasy conscience. Excuses can always be found for ignoring the divine law. But though moral and spiritual appeals carry God's identical message to all who listen, this is not true of the now moment. No one else but I am in exactly these circumstances. No one else has to carry the same burden, whether it be sickness, the death of a loved one, or some other adversity. Nothing is more individually tailored to our spiritual needs than the now moment. For that reason, it is an occasion of knowledge which can come to no one else. This moment is my school, my textbook, my lesson. Not even our Lord disdained to learn from his specific now. Being God, he knew all, but there was still one kind of knowledge he could experience as a man. St. Paul describes it. Son of God though he was, he learned obedience in the school of suffering. See St. Paul's letter to the Hebrews, chapter 5, verse 8. The university of the moment has been built uniquely for each of us, and in comparison with the revelation God gives each in it, all other methods of learning are shallow and slow. The wisdom is distilled from intimate experience, is never forgotten. It becomes part of our character, our merit, our eternity. Those who sanctify the moment and offer it up in union with God's will never become frustrated, never grumble or complain. They overcome all obstacles by making them occasions of prayer and channels of merit. What were constrictions are thus made opportunities for growth. It is the modern pagan who is the victim of circumstance and not its master. Such a man, having no practical knowledge of God, no trust in his providence, no assurance of his love, lacks the shock absorber of faith and hope and love when difficult days come to him. His mind is caught within the pincers of a past he regrets or resents, and a future he is afraid he cannot control. Being thus squeezed, his nature is in pain. The one who accepts God's will in all things escapes such frustration by piercing the disguise of outward events to penetrate the real character as messengers of the God he loves. It is that love that we have for God that must be center. It is a love born of his recognition of our recognition of his kingship and of the price he paid for that crown. That price he paid to, of course, open the doors of heaven for us if we merely were to cooperate with the graces he freely offers us. Love is always an interesting way of describing this relationship, since love is always willing the better of the other. But the better for Christ is, of course, that all men will recognize him for who he is. Curious what you think of this. It's an interesting reflection, I think, for the kingship of Christ. It would be too easy to find some tract or some speech from a great mind of the church excoriating the sins of the age. And underlying all the sins of every age is a rejection of Christ and the love he has for us, not reciprocating that love. Stay close to the sacraments. Pray on this today at Mass, if you will. And if you're hearing this after Mass, well, you are to keep the Sabbath holy. So let me know, though, what you think of all this in the comments, please. So like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this on social media helps, too. Please pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.